this for you if you need it?
Sure.
All right.
Maybe. So, I'm Shawna, and I'm an alcoholic. Little backstory, so you know my history. I was first exposed to alcohol, shockingly, as a child. My dad would mow the lawn, drink a beer. Us kids would sit down next to him and pretend to sip part of it like he wouldn't know. Never a problem. I never saw a lot of drinking going on in my family that I remember. Um, when I got into high school, I had been at a party, my first party, first exposure with alcohol, and I had been attacked. Um, we weren't allowed to talk about it. There were a couple things that happened in my high school life and right after that my mom refused for me to talk about. It had to be shut down. You know, you don't talk about things. A couple of years later, you know, I drank occasionally, not out of control. I met my husband uh, in 92. We got married and had 3 beautiful children. Um, did the fun, you know, kids growing up thing. Would drink occasionally. I lost my mom to colon cancer after 10 years. And the last year of her life, I took care of her. I was her main caretaker. That was a really difficult time for me, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Um, the one good thing that came out of it is we got to make amends with each other, and I got to forgive her, and I got to accept that she wanted to forgive herself. Um, moving on, went into teenage years. Still, my drinking was under control, not an issue. Um, then suddenly one day I was at work and I got a call from my brother. My dad had had a heart attack and died. He was 67. He was just 10 years older than my mom was when she died. So now we were orphans. I mean, we were orphans by then. Um, my drinking started to center around tragedy and death. And when COVID hit, my drinking became a really big problem. I've always had anxiety issues and self confidence issues, and it made it so much worse for me. Um, during the last year of COVID, my grandmother, my nanny, who was my entire world, died in October. This was after my husband and I losing 8 people last year to COVID. That was the turning point for me. I hit rock bottom. I didn't care how much alcohol I was drinking a day. I did not care. And there was one week, the week of the 20th, where I was drinking and I'd go outside where I drank my wine and smoked my cigarettes. And there was a green hummingbird with pink here and it had blue under its wings. And for 3 days, it sat in the same bush and watched me all day long. And the next morning, the same little hummingbird saw me, came back and sat right there. And I said, okay, Nan, I need help, don't I? And it flew off and landed on the table. And that morning I called my husband and I said, I need help and I need to get in somewhere. And 3 days later, he had me in a treatment facility in Monroe, um, which saved my life. I learned to communicate with my family again. I learned that alcohol was just something I used to hide my pain, that I didn't need to be ashamed of it. I just learned so many things through that. And it was a godsend. My big fear was coming out because when you're in an inpatient facility, you're kind of in a bubble. And I was really nervous about coming back out. And thank God I have my uncle who has been meant more to me my whole life, but not more than he has this last 6 months. He brought me to his home group, which is now my home group. And there I learned, because I had a lot of shame. I had the shame of the things I did. I had the shame of lying. I had the shame of drinking. I had the shame of what I was doing to my children. and the shame and harm that I caused myself. Um, but in that home group, I found that it's okay to have shame and it's okay to learn from it and to grow from it. And today I'm able to reconnect with my family, that we can build more memories, and that I don't have to have alcohol in my life. And I'm really enjoying not having alcohol in my life. I just, you know, God blessed me so many times over and over again, especially with my family. They have stood by me unconditionally, and I know there's a lot of people who lose their families over these addictions. And without them, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be standing here. And, I haven't slept well the last couple of days going over things in my mind and how I was going to do this. And, as soon as I got up here, I was comfortable. So I have all of you to thank for that, and for all these people from my home group being here to support me. It means so much. But I hope that I'm making my family proud. And, some of my goals when I was in rehab, I made goals, and they might seem silly little goals. Like my first goal, I hadn't driven a car in 3 years because I had had neck surgery, and then COVID hit, and then I didn't want to leave the house. So my first goal was to drive to the grocery store. So I did that. And then my second goal was to go back to work, because I used to work in healthcare for 15, 20 years. So I got a job. Yay. My next goal was I've never ever bought a vehicle on my own, ever. Not as a teenager, not as a married couple. And I did that. I bought my first little black Hyundai, and I named it Sobriety. She's very cute, and so I get my nails done every week. And one week I took them off, and it dawned on me that is one thing that I look at, because I always think, oh, I can afford this because I'm not drinking. I can afford to have the pedicure and the manicure. I'm not spending all this money on alcohol anymore. So, it's those little things. And I'm one that really believes in signs. And when I was talking about the hummingbird, and my husband dropped me off at rehab, and I was scared to death, and I went in, and they check you in, and, you have to take off all your clothes and be checked. And I was mortified. And I was sitting there, and I looked up there doing my blood pressure, and there was a hummingbird right there framed. And I thought, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. So that's my story, and thank you for letting me share it.